Welcome back to What Makes You Tick. I'm Stephen Bradshaw, and the reason I created this podcast is to help you find inspiration from the stories and experiences of others. What Makes You Tick is a vehicle for people to share their life's knowledge, their passions, and experiences with you. I get energy and inspiration from talking to people, and my goal through this platform is to help you learn from others and use this knowledge to inform your lives.
So they're always eye-openers in the sense of like, I can get my life taken away from me so quickly, like anybody can. You don't know if you're going to have tomorrow, and even though you feel perfectly fine now, like that can all change in a split second. And it really like emphasizes to me like how important every single breath I take is. No matter how hard it is for me to breathe on a particular day, I need to keep breathing, and each one of those breaths is keeping me alive and keeping me here for longer. And I just feel so much gratitude for still being here and really just not taking life for granted, because it can just disappear like so quickly.
My guest on this episode is Cystic Fibrosis of Ireland Ambassador Emma Hempton. Emma is a vibrant young woman who adores music and has a lust for life and lives it to the best of her ability. On this platform, she shares what it is like living with CF, the challenges she faced throughout her life, with memories of her childhood, adolescent years, and also the times she and her family were close to saying their goodbyes. Yet, as you listen to Emma, her story is one of strength, of determination, of resilience. And I believe it will encourage you to take another look at your life and ask yourself, are you living every moment and making the best of what is in front of you? Emma has an ability to tell a story and hook the listener on every word with her soft tones, her calmness, and her serenity, which rings through. Today is April 9th, otherwise known as 65 Roses Day, a day created to help raise awareness and funds for the people of Ireland who battle with cystic fibrosis. Having an ambassador like Emma Hempton, I'm certain that Cystic Fibrosis Ireland will raise the much needed funds. And while you're listening, head over to 65rosesday.ie and donate what you can. Here's my conversation with the wonderful Emma Hempton. Welcome back to What Makes You Tick. And on this episode, I'm delighted to welcome Emma Hempton. Emma is an ambassador for cystic fibrosis, and Emma has agreed to come onto the platform and share with us her story. Emma, how are you? Welcome on board.
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Don't worry, you can relax. You have nothing to worry about. I don't bite. And the good thing, just to give people a bit of a background, is that Emma's family and my family are actually really, really good friends. Emma's parents and my parents, especially my dad and her dad, have been friends for years and years and years. And I've, through my dad's eyes, have seen Emma grow up and become a fantastic person, and delighted that she has been named ambassador for the year for cystic fibrosis. But before we get into that, Emma, maybe it would be good to just give us a bit of background about who you are, where you're from, and I suppose what you're interested, what you like to do.
Yeah, I'm Emma. I'm 21 years old. At the minute, I'm like studying music in a college called BAM in Dublin. It's like in town, and it's like great and stuff. Obviously, everything's online this year, but yeah, that's kind of like the main thing in my life, that I'm very passionate about music and stuff. So apart from dealing with CF, I have like the nice side of life, which is just playing music and listening to music, writing music. That's kind of consumes me a little.
When did you find out that you had a passion for music?
I don't even know. I've always grown up with music around me. Like my family are big into like guitar playing at every birthday party and stuff. So yeah, I was definitely just grew up in a musical household, and I was like, yeah, this is the one thing that I want to do for sure.
I love it. I think
yeah,
music has an incredible way of kind of expressing an emotion that you're not necessarily able to share through words, right? Sometimes it's the words that share the emotion, but other times it's the just the music or the tonality or whatever, you know. So I think like it's for me, I love listening to the likes of Hans Zimmer and the work that he has done on Blue Planet and even on different movies and stuff, because I think he's amazing. But then equally so, I'll happily sit back and listen to um, different Irish bands like Hermitage Green and stuff that I like. They can bring just different energies, and equally I might listen to the odd bit of Metallica, you know. So Frank Sinatra and stuff. So like I suppose it just helps you express emotion in ways that maybe you can't normally do.
Yeah, for sure. Like even growing up with like CF, I would always like music was the one thing that would get me through like the toughest days. It really just has a way of uplifting your mood, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Tell me about CF. Tell me what is cystic fibrosis and how it's affected your life.
Yes, so cystic fibrosis is a genetic chronic terminal lung disease. Um, so like genetic, you're born with it. Chronic, it gets worse with age. So as I get older and older, my health is constantly deteriorating. And then terminal, yeah, it ends in death. To be quite blunt there, but yeah, so it's something that I'm always going to have. It primarily attacks your respiratory system, so your lungs and your digestive system as well. So like a lot of people with CF would have a lot, there's like so many various other illnesses that you could have related to CF. So for me, I have CF related liver disease, and then CF in itself attacks like the pancreas. So um, people that know biology would know that you have like enzymes, which is like the chemicals in your body that break down food. For people with CF, our bodies don't produce them like to an extent that they should. So, be reliant on artificial enzymes every time we eat. We have to calculate fat content and how many tablets we need to eat with that to make sure everything's digested. And then, yeah, lung wise, then there's like a lot of treatments and stuff. So with CF, everybody has like mucus in their body, but with CF, your mucus is like thick and sticky. So that will clog up your airways, as opposed to someone who doesn't have CF. The mucus is like very watery. It can shift and move throughout the lungs with ease. And, you know, like even yourself, if you cough, you wouldn't even notice mucus, but it's constantly clearing out of your lungs, right? That's
Yeah,
just the human function. But with CF, because it's so thick, it just gets clogged in your lungs and blocks your airways and slowly suffocates you. So you constantly need to be clearing that on a daily basis, doing like lots of different treatment plans that you get put on a treatment plan kind of at a very young age that can constantly develop. So, I'm constantly finding new treatments that would work better with me, or I might need to do more because my CF is a lot worse than it would have been when I was like 4. And it's just constantly like every day I need to make sure that I'm getting this mucus out of my lungs so that I can breathe. And even though I wouldn't breathe at like the function of a normal person, um, yeah, it's just like any bit of air that I can get is good, I suppose.
yeah,
It's better
yeah.
than nothing.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating I suppose it's fascinating for me to learn about it, because I think it's so important, like everyday things that say I or other people would take for granted. Your day is a lot different. Maybe could you talk me through kind of what happens, I suppose, say a normal day for you?
Yeah. So I usually wake up, um, just before I get into this as well, like any treatment plans that I say, there's no two cases of CF that are the same. So I do these certain treatments. Some people have to do less, more, or just different variations of them. But for me, my day begins by I usually wake up and feel quite caught up from, at night time when I'm asleep, your body like naturally relaxes, and I kind of need to like boost my lungs, being like, "Hello, wake up,
Yeah.
breathe for me, please." So, yeah, my morning starts off straight away. I need to go down and start a physio session. So, physio is like respiratory physiotherapy. That's physiotherapy on your lungs. So, for me, I take an inhaler, then I'll do this nab, this like big noisy nab that thankfully I wake up later than the rest of my family and they don't have to hear this big machine going in the morning. But yeah, I do that and it's a saline solution. So I'm just breathing that in and out, and that like moisturizes the mucus in my lungs, so it'll be easier to like it loosens it and it's easier to cough up. For me, I do my saline with this like it's like a neb chamber that has like a resistance on it as well. So as I breathe in and out, it's putting resistance on my lungs, which is making them work harder and shifting all the mucus as well. So I do that. It's like as disgusting. This probably does sound
Don't
disgusting to
worry.
most
Go for it.
people, but
Go for it.
you know, when you're doing saline, it is like you're coughing up mucus. So that's like, I know whenever anybody sees me do it for the first time, they're like, "Is she okay? This is disgusting." But that's just life. It's yeah. It's like, yeah, it's disgusting, but I'll do it if it means I can breathe.
Yeah. Whatever it
But
takes.
yeah, so I do that, and then I do a nebulized antibiotic. So again, that's just like another chamber. The medicine goes into the chamber, and I just breathe that. So overall, that would take me probably like anywhere between half an hour to an hour in the morning, depending how much work I actually have to do and how much is in my lungs that I need to clear on that day.
Yeah.
And then I'll go about my day doing normal things. And then in the afternoon, then I'll do another nebulizer, which is just another like medication that, to be honest, I don't even know what it does. I really should know what that one does.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it just like, I know it works like deeper with like your like genetic kind of thing. It's like one of those that doctors are like, "Oh, does it work? Does it not work?" But it works for me. I've been doing it like all
Yeah.
my life. So I do that. Thankfully, that one's just a quick one in the middle of the day. So that would be like 10 minutes. And then in the evening, then before I go to bed, I need to do the same thing that I did in the morning. So shifting that, like any mucus that I've built up throughout the day and trying to get rid of that then. But yeah, I definitely used to do a lot more as a kid. Thankfully, now in the past couple of years, there's been amazing discoveries in the drug world to help CF a lot. So I definitely think I'm in a lot of a better place than I was. Like I'm very thankful that I don't have to do as much physiotherapy as I
Yeah,
used to.
because you sent me a photo before this conversation, and like I'll share them on the different social media channels. But you sent me a photo, and I couldn't get over it. It was a table full of medication, like
Yeah.
a table, a full kitchen table of different types of medication that you had to take. And I'm I'm so grateful that obviously science and pharmaceutical industry and stuff have found new kind of ways to help your specific type of CF, or the treatment that you need that's best suited to you. But could you maybe talk about the experience it was you had like growing up? What kind of, I suppose, what challenges you kind of face? Because I'm sure as a kid it's tough because there's an element of, and like you're still 21, like you're still very, very young, and you have a lot of world to discover and life to discover. But I suppose it's a case of growing up, seeing that you had to go through the kind of the medication, the treatment, while potentially your friends and stuff didn't have to do it. I presume I'd say that must have been fairly difficult, right?
Yeah, it would have been very tough. thankfully I always had my parents there to, give me that boost, being like, you need to do this. But I remember like as a kid, you're out playing with your friends and you're having fun, and you know, most kids could stay out later, but I'm like, no, I need to go in because I have to do like at a young age, it would have been probably like an hour and a half worth of a physio session, like before I go to bed then. So I'd always be called in early to do that. And then in the middle of the day as well, I used to have to do like an hour session of physiotherapy. So I'd be called in and all the other kids are playing and stuff. That would have been obviously at a very young age, that was like the worst thing possible for me. Like most kids would just go in, have their dinner and come back out. But I'm like, okay, I have an hour to play now. Then I need to go in and do physiotherapy, which is really like tough for me. Then I can come back out for 30 minutes. Then I need to have my dinner. Then I know it's just like, oh, let me just be a normal kid, please.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, then going as I got older, probably coming into my teen years, it's being a teenager with CF is like honestly one of the worst experiences. I think like it gets so bad, like around puberty, CF kind of is heightened, and because all the changes in your body, and
Yeah.
for me it was just like hospitalization after hospitalization. I was constantly in and out. I got like a lot of infections because obviously having CF, your immune system is very low. It's so easy to pick up an infection. So, I could be sitting in school, somebody has a little cold, and I'd be like, oh my God. And instantly I'd be like, I need to move places. I need to be on the other side of the room. I can't be near this person that has a cold. And then it'd be like a week later, I got that cold, but for me it turned into an infection and puts me in hospital fighting for my life, basically. So that would have been like really, really tough for sure. Like, and then going into like secondary school was just like, oh, one of the worst experiences of my life. I'm sure you probably have remember me around that age, and just I was just constantly sick and like missing out on so much, especially in your teen years. You're like making new friends and stuff and like really developing as a person. But for me it was just, I completely missed out on my teen years. I didn't have a teen, like a teen, there's no such thing as teenage Emma. I was like
Yeah.
in my 30s at that stage of like in terms of maturity, being like, yeah, no, I need to like obviously like trying to um like keep a handle of all my medications and stuff. um and I think that would have been like from a very young age as well. Like obviously my parents would have tried very, very hard to always make sure that I wasn't treated different or that I had like a childhood. But, growing up with any like terminal illness that's very severe, like it just completely takes away your childhood. There's like, you're forced to grow up at such a young age. Like, even at the age of 6, I was calculating what I'm having to eat so I know how many tablets I need to take just so I can digest something, which is just kind of mad to think about now. Like, I have nieces that would have been like, I can remember being their age and being like completely different. And I look at them and I'm like, oh my God, thank God that they don't have to go through something like that, because I don't know. I think I always said it as well, like times that I was really, really sick, like I'm fine, like in myself because I'm fighting it, but it must have been so difficult for my parents because you're there like to your child, asking your child to ask their body to hold on to your life. Like, when I'm have a really bad infection and I'm in hospital and I'm on oxygen, they're like, please, like just ask your body to hold on, like you can do this, you can fight through this. And that must be like
Yeah.
the worst case for any parent to see their child go through that.
Yeah, I remember different stories hearing, because obviously, like, where our families are, there's a group of people that are very much embroiled in each other's lives and care about each
Mm.
other and each other's families and reciprocal children and so on. And I do remember times where my father would come home and he'd be in tears because he'd be worried about you and worried about how things were because things were so severe, you know. And I think that's the other thing. It's what I love hearing is like the fight you have and the strength that you have to keep fighting. And the, I suppose, now looking back at your teenage years and seeing the fight that you put up, like, you have probably developed then to become a far more resilient human being than most, especially at the age of 21, right? What's your kind of perspective on I suppose life and where your journey's going, you know?
Um, I don't know. Now I think especially over COVID, I've been cocooning in my house since March of
Yeah.
2020. Like it's a whole year now. And that was definitely time for me to like reflect on everything that I've been through. And at this stage now, I'm just completely in awe of my body and of like my mind and my spirit, like my own body and spirit, and how it got me through. I feel like I was like literally at death's door like so many times in my life, and I'm only 21, and I'm sure I'll have more experiences, but right now I'm just so grateful that my body kept fighting and kept me here, because I remember so many times that I was like, I just want to give up, because it is very like so draining, especially if you're like in hospital for like 6 weeks and this infection that's not going away, and then you pick up another infection because you're in hospital for so long, and it's just like this endless cycle. And there were like obviously had a huge impact on my mental health as well, and I was just like, oh, I wish I wish this was the last admission. I wish I'd just go and I won't have to deal with this anymore. But I'm just so thankful that I kept fighting and that my body, like even today, and it's a daily basis that my body fights to keep me alive and keep me in this world. Is just, I'm completely in awe of it, to be honest. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like I've looked so deep into it now that I'm just like, this is just great. It's just mind blowing that I'm still here.
Well, like it's I'm so thankful that we're having this conversation as well, because like you look at that and you look back at, like, you're fighting one battle in terms of the CF, all right? But then you also then are fighting all the other things that everybody else fights, right? So, but at a even greater level. So mental health, for example, like, you're to to manage, like, I've had different stages of um I'm not going to say depression, but there was very much stages in my life at different times, especially in the last couple of years, right? About 3 years ago, where I went through a point where I was just completely dark and numb and didn't kind of know what to do. I couldn't get myself out of that, right? But as you say, with your mental health, you've seen now that you've faced so many dark times, but you've triumphed as well. So how did you manage to get through that? And I suppose, what tools did you put in place to help you?
um it's a daily battle. It's definitely
Yeah.
still something that, like, I mean, I don't think anybody really like knows how to like be. We always say like, yeah, we want to be happy, like we want to be happy, but realistically, for me, I had to be like, okay, yeah, but happiness isn't something that you have every single day, and it's about knowing when you're sad and knowing when things are a bit slower, or like, you just don't feel great, to just be like, yeah, no, I'm having a normal human experience, but I am going to get through this. That was a huge thing for me, like just constantly telling myself, like, I'm going to get you through this, like we're going to get through this together. Like I always see, I'm a very spiritual person anyway, which is something that I have my nanny to thank. She's like very into like angels and stuff. She got me into that from a young age. And then my auntie as well, getting me into like crystals and manifestation and journaling and stuff. So that's something that stuck to me. But I always see myself, and like I would talk to like my higher self, or like same way people would talk to like a god, or there's all different religions, but I'm very much of like, I see me and in this body, and then I see like my spirit, and I'm like, okay, my spirit will get my body through all these like tough times in terms of CF, and it'll get me through like any slumps that I'm in. I'm like, yeah, no. And I always like hold my hand and I'm like, Mom, I'm gonna get through this. We're gonna get through this. It's gonna be fine. And just having that like reassurance, for me, it was like a huge thing, being able to reassure myself that, because I've obviously dealt with like very severe drops in mental health, and it's always so important when you do have CF to like, and as well just anybody, to get your mental health up, because I always found that like if I went into a depressive episode, I'd stop doing my physio treatments and then my body would get really sick as well. So yeah, trying to find that like reassurance within myself that I'm gonna pull myself out of this eventually and then get back on track was like a huge thing for sure.
Amazing. I think that's incredible, to acknowledge the fact that you know that you have that higher spirit that you want, that you need to talk to help you through it. That it's nearly seeing yourself in a more, in a potential better light, or believing in yourself in a way that, like in sport, for example, right? A lot of athletes who would play sport would have this thing called self-talk, and the negative self-talk can be so down, and that then can actually come to people in just everyday life. For example, looking in the mirror and saying really negative things to yourself. And I always kind of say is that, don't say something to yourself that you're not willing to tell your best friend. All right. So if you kind of put that into perspective, you'll never tell your best friend that they're bad, or maybe you will, but you'll do it out of true honesty and helping them to develop. But only say things to yourself that you're kind of willing to say to your best friend, and then you start treating yourself in a better light. You start being more positive, but more optimistic. And what I'm hearing from you there is that optimism, even in times of despair, seems to kind of reign through, that you know that there will be a better day. Just got to keep going. Would that be
Yeah,
fair to say?
yeah, for sure.
So Emma, tell me, April 9th, what does that day mean to you?
Yeah, so this year, 65 Roses Day lands on April 9th. Um, it's just the day for cystic fibrosis awareness. The name 65 Roses comes from, as kids, like kids just can't say 65 or cystic fibrosis. It's such a tongue twister. I can't even say it most of the time. So when I was like younger, I'd always be like, I have 65 roses, and it was just kind of an easy way for kids to try explain what their illness is. um so that's where it gets the name from. um so 65 Roses Day, the Cystic Fibrosis Association of Ireland are really pushing for donations this year. Usually, they'd have their roses sale, so they'll sell these like little rose pins and sell them in like shopping centres and stuff. But obviously, that can't be done for COVID because of COVID this year. So they're challenging people to do a 65 themed challenge. So you can walk for 65 minutes, go for a 6.5K cycle or run or something with 65 as a theme. Um, and just to raise awareness for cystic fibrosis and to raise like funds. You can donate this year by using the website 65rosesday.ie, and there you can donate, and your money will go towards amazing things like exercise or fertility grants, treatment and transplant, like out of pocket expenses, and supports for bereavement for families, or any sort of family supports for families that are affected with cystic fibrosis. So yeah, it's like a really good cause. The Cystic Fibrosis Association of Ireland doesn't get any government funding. like solely reliant on like donations by the public. So yeah, it's like just really important this year in particular with COVID that the Cystic Fibrosis Association reaches the funds that they need to then give the supports to people with CF and their families.
Incredible. So that website again is 65roses.ie. So
65rosesday.ie. Yeah.
sorry, 65rosesday.ie. Go to that and donate whatever you can. And I think anybody who's listening to this, just type it into your phone, do whatever it takes just to put a few quid behind, because we know ourselves how tricky this year has been. And obviously, a charity like this, COVID is obviously going to affect many, many people with cystic fibrosis because there's an immune deficiency there already, right? And because it attacks the lungs. So it's so important that we get behind Emma and Cystic Fibrosis Day, and we actually support them, because at the end of the day, without support and without money, Emma and the team can't grow their opportunity to develop new drugs, to try new different treatments, and put in place the support mechanisms that are there for the families. So Emma, listen, I'll put everything into the show notes. I'll share all that, and again, yeah, make sure everybody that you get on and donate and support Emma and the team within Cystic Fibrosis Ireland. Am I correct in saying that there's a family? You guys are all connected through 65 Roses and a tattoo. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, it would have been 2017, 16 or 17. We all went in. So there's 6 in my family, my parents, me, my brother Carl, my brother Owen, and my sister Jamie. So we all decided like, oh, let's do something to raise funds for CF. And we couldn't think. And then my sister had the amazing idea of, oh, let's all go get tattoos, as you do as a family, completely normal thing. So we all went and got a rose tattoo, obviously because of 65 roses. So mine is like on my wrist here. I don't know if you can
Oh,
see, it's like
amazing.
upside down there, but
Yeah.
yeah, so we did that, and as far as I can remember, we raised 750. It was either 750 or €800. I'm not sure, which is massive back then. But
That's
yeah,
massive.
I don't think there's any way of getting my family to do tattoos again.
65 tattoos now. No, but I think that's
Yeah.
incredible that there's now a day that's specifically put forward for cystic fibrosis to acknowledge it, to also recognize everybody, those 1,400 people who are battling like yourself, finding ways to fight and to keep fighting. And I think there's so much to be learned from people who go through kind of obviously challenges in life, but who not only get hit once, but keep getting hit, keep getting back up, and show an absolute desire to live and to be the best you can be. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really wanted you on the podcast, because at the end of the day, it's about what inspires me, but also different people, what motivates them and what makes them tick. So Emma, you sent me a few photographs before we had this conversation, and what was interesting was there's one particular photograph of you in A&E, and you look like you're in a bit of trouble. Could you maybe discuss or tell me what that photo depicted?
Yeah, so that would have been in relation to my CF liver disease. Um, Basically, I have like varicose veins in my esophagus. So I constantly need to get them monitored. Like every 6 months, I'll get a scope to make sure that there's none there that look like that they're ready to rupture. But obviously, I'm always that could always just happen any day, and it's not something that can be stopped. It's not something that they like the doctors really know what causes it or anything. But that particular incident, I had one of like quite a large varicose vein that had burst and resulted in quite a severe internal bleed. Um, I've gotten 3 of them in my life so far. The first one being in like 2015, I think. 20, I think it was 2016. Um, and obviously that was like so scary because I had never had it before. I didn't know it was something that could happen. And that was really tough. Like I remember going into A&E and my health just deteriorated so quick, and then I was like unconscious, and then I woke up and they were like, you're going for emergency surgery. And I say that was one of the toughest things for my parents. I remember both of them. My dad works nights and it happened in the evening, and he obviously had to just leave work and run to the hospital because they didn't know what was wrong with me. Um, and I remember going for this like emergency surgery, and I was only like 16 at the time, and the doctor let my mom into theatre while they were putting me under anesthetic, um, to like to see what was going on. But it was a real case they didn't know what was going to happen, like what exactly was happening, until they went down and had a look. So they had like rang ICU and had a bed prepared for me up in there. And I remember the nurses and all like pretty much took a step back when they were putting me under anesthetic and just let me be there with my mom. And they're like, the doctor was like, you don't know when you're going to see, we don't know like when you're going to see her again. We might have to put you asleep for a couple of weeks. So, just say goodbye to your mom and thank her for everything. And it was a real like, that was the first time that I was like, whoa, like this is a really big deal having CF. I was getting put to sleep, and my mom was like bawling her eyes, crying beside me, obviously holding my hand. I was just like trying to squeeze her hand out of like, but I didn't have any strength at all. And I just remember like we were just both looking at each other crying, and I was like, thank you so much for everything, I love you so much. And I was like uncontrollably crying. My mom was like, Emma, it's okay to let go. Like if you feel like your body needs to go, it like I won't be upset. It's okay. And that was like, whoa, like having to say goodbye basically. So I basically said like my last words thinking I was going to be dead, at the age of 16. It's crazy. So that was huge. And then another one happened. Then that would have been the photo that I sent to you. That would have been in 2019. I didn't really know what was wrong with me. I felt like a bit sick. I just kind of felt a bit like short of breath, dizzy, and then all of a sudden I fainted. I remember my sister was in the house and my mom had just got in from work, and I fainted. And then my mom came running up the stairs to see if I was okay, and she brought me down the stairs then. And then my sister was like on the couch just kind of like looking at me. My sister thankfully works in healthcare, so she was kind of just observing, being like, okay, what's going, like trying to work out what's happening with me. And then I started projectile vomiting blood everywhere. And I was slipping in and out of consciousness. So my mom didn't know what to do. She was kind of like freaking out. But thankfully, my sister, with working in healthcare and dealing with things like this, she was very calm, and she rang an ambulance. I remember, I'm not really too sure because I was like unconscious at this point and just like spilling blood everywhere. But yeah, she managed to get an ambulance, and there was like a difficulty of like trying to get an ambulance to bring me to the hospital where my team were, that knew what was happening with me. So then I don't remember this, but my mom said that there was like 5 paramedics that had to come and try stabilize me in the house. Then they got me into the ambulance, and then they had to try stabilize me again because I was like slipping. And then we got to St. Vincent's Hospital is my hospital, and I was in A&E, and it was just like completely all black to me. But I remember waking up then, and a nurse was beside me, and basically I'd like gone into, essentially went into cardiac arrest. Um, so I always like refer to like, oh yeah, I remember that time that I died and I made it through. But it was just like this very, you know, worrying time. My mom and dad couldn't get in to see me because the whole team were there just trying to like revive me, wake me up and get me stable. Then my parents were allowed in, and it was just kind of like an up and down of like, I'd lose consciousness again, they'd have to try stabilize me again. Um so yeah, that was like a pretty big, probably like one of the biggest things that I went through at CF. Obviously, yeah, I'd been through the one in 2016. That was very scary, but I was kind of stable pretty much throughout the whole thing of that. They just didn't know what was happening because it was the first one. But this one, it was real like, okay, yeah, we know what's happening, but this is like so severe. And we were worrying, like, is it too late? Kind of, because they kept trying to get me stable and it wasn't working. So yeah, I think I had lost like a third of my blood in my body and had a load of blood transfusions. Um, which was like the first time I was so grateful of like, people donate blood. Like that's the thing that people do. You hear about all the time, but it's never something that you really fully think and are fully grateful for until you're the one on the resuscitation table and they're like trying to keep you alive, and then it's like somebody donated this blood and it's this miracle. Because I remember at the time it was like, when I was kind of waking up, they were like, there was this big conversation about like, are we going to get the blood in time? She needs blood now. But yeah, it's just a crazy thing. It's moments like that I really like. CF is a huge thing. It's always a big, huge wake up call. And whenever I make it through any of those internal bleeds and I come out at the other end of it, I'm like, I see myself as a complete different person. Like, okay, this is my start at a new life. I very much could have been gone then. The time in 2016, the time in 2019, it happened again in April 2020. Thankfully, that wasn't as severe because I knew the signs straight away. Like, I once I gathered that, like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling all of these things, I was like, I have an internal bleed, and my mom was like, I don't think you do. I was like, I do. I'm going into hospital, and caught it on time, and it was grand. But those things they're literally like life or death situations. It's only like a matter of hours, or not even hours, a matter of minutes of like, if you get to the hospital on time and they can do something for you. But they're like such big eye openers. Um,
And as
so
you
like
call
to
them an
me,
eye opener, do you see them as a kind of like an opportunity to reset afterwards?
yeah, for sure. I always just completely feel like a new person, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like they're not. Nothing is causes them at all. I'm sure there are situations in other illnesses that like those moments would be like, okay, yeah, no, I need to look after myself and do my treatments or whatever. But these are things that just don't really, I could have one tomorrow and that could be the one that takes me out. Um, so they always are just this huge thing to me of like, oh, okay, every single day really does count. Like, because I was fine yesterday and today I'm in A&E and they're trying to stabilize me and they don't know if I'm going to make it. So they're always eye openers in the sense of like, I can get my life taken away from me so quickly, like anybody can. You don't know if you're going to have tomorrow. And even though you feel perfectly fine now, like that can all change in a split second. And it really like emphasizes to me of like how important every single breath I take is. No matter how hard it is for me to breathe on a particular day, I need to keep breathing, and each one of those breaths is keeping me alive and keeping me here for longer. And I just feel so much gratitude for still being here and really just not taking life for granted, because it can just disappear like so quickly.
Jesus Christ. Excuse my language, but like that's just incredible story. And I was kind of getting a bit emotional there as you were telling it, because you're remarkable, Emma. And I think there's so much that people can learn from you and your experiences and how you approach life, be it people who are young and especially people older. Like I'm learning tons from you today, and I I just think, like, how do you feel today? How are you now?
I'm really, really good. Just a month ago, I started on a new drug called Kaftrio, which is a triple combination drug for people with CF. And thankfully, my variant of CF, there are different forms of CF that like the drug won't work with, but thankfully it works for me. So I started that a month ago, and the change is literally unthinkable. Like, I feel like I don't give myself credit for everything that I've been through over the years. Like, it's only since starting Caftru that I'm really like, whoa, I've been through so much. Because now I wake up and my first thought isn't, I have a chronic illness. I can't breathe as well today as I could yesterday. Like, I'm getting worse and I'm going to have this illness forever. And I just don't feel that anymore. I literally don't feel like I have an illness anymore, which is just unthinkable. Like, even in terms of my lungs, now I can feel air go to parts of my lungs I've never felt before. I have the energy to exercise, which is something I've never been able to do. I could go for like maybe a 10-minute walk, if anything, beforehand, but now I'm like going for a walk. Like the other day, I went for a walk for probably about like 3 hours, going from fast paced to just strolling, and then building myself up and being able to go on a fast paced walk again, which is just crazy.
Wow. So you're getting to experience new things that you
Yeah.
never have been able to experience before. And as I say, some people take for granted walking for 3 hours, whereas you got to do it for the first time, probably, is it?
Yeah, and now I'm like, oh, this is how people live life. This is what life is supposed to feel like. It's great.
That's incredible. That is absolutely music to my ears. What's the name of that drug that you were taking? And obviously there's variants, so it not, doesn't necessarily work for everyone.
Yeah, it's called Kaftrio. So I can explain a little bit about how like
Yeah, I'd
that
love
works.
you to. Yeah.
So it works by attacking like the genetics of CF rather than just symptoms. So with CF, you have, okay, think of like you have your cell, and this your cell wall has these proteins on it that act as like gates at the wall to let salt and water go in and out of the cell, and that's a normal function. But with people with CF, their cell wall will be like here, and inside their cell, those proteins are floating around. They don't know what their purpose are. That's the mutation. That's like what creates this whole life with CF.
Yeah.
So two of the drugs that are in this triple combo is they're called tezacaftor and alexacaftor. So I know they're big words, but they pull these proteins up to the cell wall. And then the third drug kicks in, which is called ivacaftor, and that will then, so the proteins are up at the cell wall ready to be the gates, and then the ivacaftor makes them work as gates and open and close to allow the water and salt to pass throughout the cells. So I know it sounds all very sciencey, but essentially all it's doing is making someone with CF whose cells would have been clogged up with salt, and their salt and water never flowed properly, which creates a lot of mucus throughout the body. Now those proteins are working properly and your cells are functioning normally. So, your mucus is easier to cough up.
Mm.
I've even stopped producing a lot of mucus, which is crazy. That's why I can feel parts of my lungs I haven't felt ever in my life, because there's just no mucus there anymore, which is just crazy. And to think it's only in like these 3 little tablets that I take every day, and what a change it's been is crazy.
You've gone from intravenous strips through to full tables of drugs and antibiotics and things to take to now 3 tablets.
Yeah, well, like I still have to do
The
all my
nebulizer
other
and the other pieces.
treatments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are like a lot of tablets. Like it doesn't take out it. You don't have to. It doesn't necessarily mean you can stop what you have been doing,
Yes. Yeah.
but
It,
it
it, it
just
helps. It enhances it.
yeah.
That's incredible, Emma. And like it's so good to hear. Like even you light up as you're talking about it, like air in your lungs where you never had before. Like that's so amazing. If you were if you were to say to a young Emma, a younger Emma, sorry, because you're very young, but a younger Emma, what would you say? Like if there was a message that you could share with people, what would it be?
Um, Gosh, I don't know. Probably just to like keep fighting, like in every sense of the word. Like just keep fighting through anything that your body or your mind puts you through. Like there's always going to be like a better day and a better time in your life. I always kind of go back to the mantra of everything works out in the end. Um, that's something that like my mom would have always told me when I was like lying in hospital thinking I wasn't going to make it through the night. She'd be like, "No, you're going to do it. It's going to be fine." Um, so yeah, just like keep fighting for sure is like the biggest thing. I feel like if I could go back to my younger self, I'd just like want to give her a hug because she's been through so much and she doesn't realize like what she's going through and how thankful she's going to be in years that she fought through it all.
That's incredible. I think like that actually makes me want to give you a hug, and that actually makes me want to look my little goddaughter and godson and give them a hug because like yeah, I think what you've kind of shown is your resilience is unquestionable. Your ambition for life and your lust for life is um like it's tangible. I can hear it in your voice how passionate you are and how obviously so knowledgeable you are about it. But wait, let's talk about one of the things that you love, as in music, right? Do you write music? Do you sing? Do you like what are the things that you do to kind of escape from all this?
um, I like mainly sing and play guitar, I play piano. Um, I've written like a lot of songs. I remember whenever I was in hospital, once I learned how to play guitar actually to a decent standard and my dad would let other people hear me, then he'd like sneak my guitar into the hospital to me and I'd just be up and the nurse would always come in being like, "Emma, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, will you just go to sleep?" And I'm like, "I'm writing a song about my experience right now." Okay. And I'd just like have all these like really sad, like they're actually so sad. I listen back to them every couple of months and I'm like, wow, it's like a very like big representation of what I was going through right then. Because being in hospital is like so lonely. Obviously people with CF have to be in an isolated room, so like you don't see anybody for hours. So yeah, I used to just write songs a lot then. And then now I'm mainly just singing whatever I want or playing whatever I want.
Love it.
But it's always like the one thing that would like boost me whenever I'm feeling down or, even days that my lungs are quite bad. I've always said that singing definitely improves my lungs and like my airways. So even if I feel like really caught up and stuff and I can barely breathe, I'll always be able to lash out a song, and I'll feel good after it then. So,
It's incredible. I just like I'd love you to maybe share. I suppose if you could share maybe a story or an anecdote of like a really positive memory as you were a kid, because obviously CF is going to have so many challenging and difficult times, and you went through so many difficult times. Is there like what's the kind of the something that stands out that nearly kind of gives you the two fingers to CF at a certain time, you know?
um, I don't know. It's probably going to be related to music again. Um, I remember like there was one particular time that I was in hospital with like a really bad infection, and my health had only like started to come back up. Like you get like your lung function taken, like you breathe into a machine and it tells you like what percentage your lungs are at.
And how
So I
low
remember
did yours go?
at around that time, like my lungs went down to like 38% of a function. That was like the worst that I had been at. But I'd always be around like, early 40%. And I remember my lung function went up by like 2% this particular admission after being in for, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks. Went up 2%, and I was like, all right, grand, so I can go to this gig tomorrow. And the nurses are like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm allowed hours out on the weekend, and there's this gig at the Olympia that I want to go to, so yeah, I'll just go to that. And they're like, what are you doing? But the nurses would always slag me, being like, oh, how many concerts do you have booked now? Because I'd always get sick around the time that I have loads of concerts coming up. And like I'd be going with like my
Typical.
mom and my sister. Yeah, and they'd be like, you better get hours out and go to it. So I remember this particular one was just like the doctors and all were looking at me being like, I don't think you can do this. And I was like, I'll be fine. I have seated tickets. Off I went to my little concert. Came back then for like my intravenous antibiotics then at like 11 o'clock at night or something. They were like, "Do you enjoy your concert?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm grand."
I actually
That,
I remember that dad telling me a story like that. You're like you were adamant that you were getting out and that you were
yeah.
going to get to it. What? Who was the concert? Do you remember?
Um, oh, I don't even remember who that one was. There was just so many cases like that, but I
I
remember
love
this
it though because
particular one. It was like a
you just
huge
went
one. They
for
were like,
it.
"God."
It's a no, it's a story that I think it's one of the stories that I remember. I always remember Dad coming home and say she's fighting, she's still fighting, she's brilliant, she's a great girl. And you know the way Dad would always go, "Oh, you're the best girl" and stuff. Like he always just was had your back. And I think that's the case for a lot of us, even though we mightn't see you all the time, Emma, and here. Like there was a time that stands out to me, and I think it kind of epitomized the kind of community that we were in. Is that when we were heading away to Europe to pick up the units, we were bringing home motorhomes from Europe, from Italy, and you came to the airport and you were part, we made a documentary about it and you were part of the documentary, and we got to say hello to you and give you a kind of a hug and say, like, if only for the CF you would have been on that trip with us and you would have been part of the whole thing, and you were definitely part of it in our hearts anyway, that's for sure, because Carl and your dad were leading the charge, in fairness, in terms of the entertainment and the singing. But that was something for me that just meant everybody was so thrilled to see you at the airport.
Yeah, I
As we,
remember at that time as well, I was doing intravenous antibiotics at home, so I'd hooked myself up to like the little like thing that has all the medicine in it, like essentially going to the airport with a drip, being like, "Bye guys, have fun."
yeah, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And I think, yeah, it just shows that there's so many things in life that people who aren't suffering from or an illness like the cystic fibrosis that we take for granted, right? And I think what you've done in this conversation, I'm so grateful, is kind of shine the light on, I suppose, on life elements that we would normally take for granted, to reassess ourselves and go, Jesus, you know what? I'm so grateful for today. I'm so grateful that I'm able to go about my day without having to obviously go through the day and the challenges that you go through. But what you've done, and in this conversation, is you've done it with a smile on your face. Like, you've been so honest, and you've been so I suppose authentic in what you're sharing with everybody. If people wanted to know more about cystic fibrosis and April 9th and 65 roses, where should they go, or even who should they talk to?
If you just go onto the Cystic Fibrosis Association of Ireland, they have a website, and it says all the information there, where all the money will go to. There's like all the donations are used for amazing causes like exercise grants and fertility grants and helping just people with CF try lead some sort of a normal life, and as well support for family bereavements obviously is a huge thing in the CF community. So yeah, on their website it'll say where all like the funding goes, and it's a really great cause for sure. I'm not
Absolutely.
being biased, I swear.
No, absolutely. And I think you're a credit to them all as well for being an ambassador and sharing your story with me. And I'm so thankful that you've done this. And like, anything I can do to help, please reach out, let me know. Like, I have different friends and friendships all over the world. So if it's to just shine a light in what you guys are doing, which is fantastic, and sharing the story of 65 roses, because like, it's the kids, the next generation, the kids like yourself who've gone through it, to give them an opportunity to keep fighting, and to give them a chance to adjust to the medication that's there and available, should they be suitable for it. I think we can't probably do enough, and I think everybody who's listening, I'd love you to donate. I'll put all the information into the show notes. And yeah, you have a friend obviously from What Makes You Tick, but you knew that anyway. I'm just delighted we've got you on board, and you know what, I'd love to do this next year and just hear about the journey. And again, as we go through, hopefully COVID is done and dusted by that stage. But would you be up for coming back and telling the next step of the journey? Would you?
Yeah, for sure. I have a whole life ahead of me that I can tell you about.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So let's make this an annual thing, so that we actually do and share the journey with people, and give them a sense of how things are developing, because yeah, you're incredible.
Thanks.
My pleasure. All right. Well, listen, on that note, I will say thank you so much for being part of What Makes You Tick. And yeah, let's see what happens now in the next few months. Can't wait for the next conversation.
Thank you.
Emma is incredible. At 21 years old, Emma has a grip on life and a passion for living that we can all learn from. That passion is in us all. We just have to start looking in the right places and finding out what living really means to us. Please do one thing today, folks. Head to 65rosesday.ie and donate to help Emma and the people affected by CF. Your support matters. Thank you so much for listening. Stay up to date on all future episodes by hitting the subscribe option, or if you want to find out more, visit whatmakesyoutick.net.